the author of The Criminal Class, Marnie. His name is Paul MacNamara, and he taught in prisons. He joins us now. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Very well. Very
good.
interested in chatting to you this morning. And we just want to talk about the things like in your books that talk about, prisoners going in and smuggling in contraband and these sorts of things that you saw while you were teaching. Tell us about your experience.
Yeah, well, I started teaching in the jails and, you would get to see all different aspects of being in the jail. And for me, I had no experience of jail before, so the first time I went for my job interview was the first time I walked in there.
Mm-hmm.
And, the first time you walk in, your senses are over, everything's heightened. There's the barbed wire, the doors that close behind you as you walk in, the guards, or, the prisoners hanging behind the fences calling out to you. It might be from parole or somewhere.
Did you feel like you were in prison?
Yeah, everything. It was a bit, the end of the old Get Smart show where he walks out and there's like one door closes behind and then you can only go, 2 metres in front of you and then the next door is locked. You've got keys on, you've got a radio. In education we had inventories where everything that you handed out had to be counted back. Pens, anything that you gave out, because prisoners will use pens for, one thing they use them for is to convert them into syringes. And another thing they make them into is tattooing implements. They put like a paper clip on the end, get the ink, and then they make their own tattoo guns out of them.
Wow.
Right, okay. You were in there as a teacher, so what were you teaching and what was your program that you were doing with some of the prisoners?
Well, I was teaching literacy and numeracy mainly, and basic computers. One thing you do discover early on is that, in the prison population, there's large gaps in education. And, I had guys who were 50 years old, wanted to learn how to read and write. I remember one guy was in his 40s and came up to education and he said he wanted to be able to read the newspaper. So we had different needs of people. Some people would want to go to university, study externally. And, as an education officer, you had to vet that kind of stuff, because I remember one incident where a guy wanted to do pharmaceutical studies at uni.
Right.
And he'd done all the right things, and then I had a look at his record and he was in for manufacturing amphetamines.
Right,
Of course he's into pharmaceuticals. He just wants to enhance his career.
I'm just looking
And
at some of
improve
the...
his product, perhaps.
Yes,
There
the
you
irony,
go.
right? The irony.
I'm just looking at some of the things in your book. Like it says here, page 173, a poor old retiree gardener wearing his faded green T-shirt and shorts who mistakenly ends up inside a prison van when it's assumed he's on work release and the guards don't believe that he's not a prisoner. How does that work?
No.
Yeah, well, you could imagine that everyone would protest that they're innocent, and this old fella was, he lived next door to the park, and he was working there doing a bit of gardening. He happened to be wearing his old green clothes, which is the prisoners wear the green, and when they come to round them up, he was marched onto the van with the rest of them. I talk about in the story that, he protests his innocence, but the guards have heard all that before.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until they did a head count back at the jail that they realised instead of an escapee, they had one extra.
Wow.
See, this is it. They're not taking any chances. Mate, look, there's a couple of very good stories that I probably won't mention at this time slot that are there, but there's one there about the guy in the kitchen who smuggles steaks around while he's got meat in his shoes all day. What's as an extra snack for later? He's sharing it with others? My goodness.
Well, that's the thing. So they had an industrial kitchen there, and they figured out that some of the meat was going missing, and they couldn't see where it was being taken from. And when they lined everybody up, they got them to strip, and this guy was still wearing his shoes, everything but his shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got him to step out of his shoes, he had a couple of steaks in there. And
Why,
apparently...
Gives new meaning to a shoey, Marty.
yeah. So you can drink out of your shoe when you win the race, but these guys were... And apparently the steaks were in high demand down in the wing because
Sure.
you could do a bit of your own cooking.
Well done with the pepper sauce.
Yeah, you'd need something to change the flavour, I imagine.
I think so, after being
yeah.
in someone's shoe.
Well, it's intriguing.
And it'd be a bit warm. I can't say it would actually be maybe still in good condition, but anyway.
Yeah, look, thank
Wow.
you so much for
Tenderised
sharing.
it for you, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
it
very much so.
absolutely.
It's,
Mate, it's a very interesting read.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, the cover of your book says it all. You know, you were sitting in there and you've got people convicted of murders and, you know, all sorts of things, armed robbery and all of that. So, mate, it would have been a very unique experience.
Yeah, it is. And I think the book as well shows that unique experience because usually you hear a story from the prisoner's point of view or from the law enforcement view. And I was going in as an everyday person, as a teacher, and had no experience of jail. So, you know, through the book I sort of, you know, the reader sees my eyes and goes in and it sort of all unfolds in front of you.
Yeah, just amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Where can you get the book? All good bookstores?
All good bookstores. It's also available as an e-book and it's an audio book as well through Audible.
All right,
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Paul MacNamara,
you.
The Criminal Class. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.